Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Bedroom Brainiacs. We're excited to be back with you. May is Women's Health Month, and so we are doing a video for you focusing on self-care as healthcare. I'm Catherine Dukes. I'm a sex educator and a sex therapist, and I'm also the owner of the Center for Connection and Desire and our adult sex education section, which is Bedroom Brainiacs. And with me today is Kate Randall. So, Kate, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kate Randall. I am a health educator with a background in sexuality and sexual health. And specifically, I focus on adult education. And
Thank
I
you.
have done a lot of work around self-care. I've done a lot of workshops around self-care. So it's something I've spent a lot of time thinking about, both how it can enhance our lives, but then also being cognizant of like the criticisms and the responses to self-care. And so we're going to talk about a lot of that in today's video.
That's awesome. And I was really excited when you and I were talking about like what angle we wanted to take when celebrating Women's Health Month. When we landed on self-care as healthcare,
Yeah.
it just seemed to click for us. So
Mhm.
actually, if you would lead us off
Sure.
on different aspects of self-care, could you do that for us?
Yeah, so I'll start the conversation going over just self-care as a concept and how I tend to think about it. So I generally put self-care into two buckets. The first bucket being what I consider like the maintenance. So just like keeping yourself healthy and alive, making sure that you are taking care of your responsibilities, just sort of keeping your life and your body functioning. So this is things like taking care of your hygiene, brushing your teeth, taking showers, going to the doctor, and then also the things in your life that need to be done, like doing your laundry, um, feeding yourself healthy food, drinking water, exercising, like just kind of like keeping things moving, keeping things functional. So that's the first bucket. And then the second bucket is kind of like the pleasure or the indulgence aspect of self-care. So those are the things like, getting massages, taking bubble baths, eating chocolate when you need an emotional boost. Like, and these are the things that I think people like stereotypically think of as self-care. And a lot of the criticisms that I've heard around self-care are kind of around this bucket of, um, people just using self-care as a way to indulge, as a way to just like be selfish or to just do things that are all about pleasure and feeling good. And I think both buckets are important. I think you do have to keep yourself alive and healthy, but I also think it's important to nourish yourself with things that make you feel good, whether that is a bubble bath or a chocolate bar or a trip to the doctor. Like all of those things can serve your health and all of those things can make you feel good and help you live your life. So I think both of those buckets are important. I don't really think one is better than the other, but that's how I conceptualize self-care as kind of the two buckets of maintenance and then pleasure.
I agree. I don't think we want to in any way judge the pleasure-based self-care. But I think that when we get into self-care is just pleasure-based and only escapist, then
Yeah,
I think that's when we have a problem. So as we move forward a little bit later into like some kind of like splitting apart different other core aspects of self-care, I think that we're gonna maybe challenge some ideas of what self-care can be.
absolutely. Yeah. And then this also, connects to the idea that self-care can be different for different people on different days, that it's not just one thing for everyone. Um, so as I said, I kind of pay attention to the conversations around self-care because it's a topic that I'm really interested in. And one of the responses that I've seen a lot is kind of pushing back on self-care because it is too selfish. And the idea that instead we should be practicing community care. And I don't really think that those two are in opposition to each other. In fact, like I think self-care and community care can serve each other and support each other. So if I'm taking care of myself and I'm taking care of my health and my emotional health, and then that allows me to show up for my community in better ways. So if I want to show up for my friends with an open heart, or if I want to show up to my workplace with a focused mind and an energized body, taking care of myself allows me to do those things.
Well,
And
and
then,
doesn't that make sense that if we spend time taking great care of our health, then we can show up more fully in our relationships. We can show up more fully in our work and in our communities that we are going to be like less dependent. We're going to be less sick. We're going to spend like less time away from work. We're going to be able to show up happier and healthier for maybe our kids, maybe our partners, maybe our friends, maybe our family. We'll be able to show up as our best selves, like in those different spaces if we take
yeah,
great care of ourselves.
absolutely. Yeah. So, and then I also think, reversely, when you have a community that is supportive and healthy and strong, that support kind of enables you to be able to better take care of yourself. So, yeah, I think self-care and community care are definitely in conversation with each other and can support each other. Um,
Absolutely.
so then should we move into talking about some like specific examples of how we think self-care can be used as healthcare?
Yes, absolutely. So different ways that self-care can be healthcare is one way is that emotional. So you can do self-care as journaling, as meditation, as social self-care, and spending time with the people that you love and care about. And so one thing that I think where self-care becomes stereotypical is that self-care is has to cost money. You
Hmm.
know, it's massages and nails and vacations, right? It's indulgence, but it has a dollar sign.
Yeah.
So one thing we've done in the workshops that I've done with different groups is to really challenge this idea that self-care always has to have dollar signs.
Hmm.
Because also then it means that self-care is only for folks with privilege and also and with money.
Yeah.
And I really want to start really small, that self-care can start with just the breath
Hmm.
and taking a moment and taking a break and just giving yourself a moment to just breathe really deeply and take care of your body and your mood with just taking a moment to take deep breaths and take that rest can be self-care. And so
Yeah.
that would actually go to mental health, right? Being able to take breaks, take care of your mental health care, take care of maybe that's going to therapy, maybe that is maybe going to coaching. Maybe that is not overworking. That all falls under the mental health care. And then we have the physical health domain, right? When as a therapist, I'm looking at folks who are impacted by anxiety and depression or other different difficult mood challenges. I'm also looking at how's your physical health, like how's your nutrition, how's your physical activity, and also how's your rest. So that those are all aspects of physical health, right? And so when you look at physical health, yeah, like hygiene, doctor's visits, nutrition, like all those other things actually support overall health and mental health. And those are actually so critical because we actually have to keep this whole like organic, robotic like thing that is our body and bones and muscles and blood, like actually like working in as tip-top shape as we can. Like that is part of like critical self-care.
Hmm. Yeah, I think sometimes people like focus on self-care as like a list and we get really bogged down in like doing individual tasks, but like no one is looking for more things to add to their to-do list. So like I think self-care is really helpful to think more of as a mindset where it's like I deserve to feel good. I deserve to feel good in my body, in my mind, in my relationships. So I think like the mindset of healthcare is more important than like giving someone a list of like things to do to, make themselves feel good about themselves. So yeah, and self-care, as I've said before, it's individual. It's going to be different for every person, every day, every situation. What, engages my mind and makes me feel alive is going to be different for Kat, and what engages her mind and makes her feel alive. So I think that for me, like the mindset around self-care and how you approach it is more important than the specific acts that you do to take care of yourself.
Right. And it really is looking at like what is most meaningful in your life. And
Yeah.
then for us at the center, something that we have a great focus on is your sexual health, right? And so, sexual self-care, might be masturbation. It might be great communication with your partners around what pleasures your body. It might be going for STI testing, right?
Yeah.
It might be making sure that you have solo sex with yourself like a couple times a week, or it might be that you have a lot of that you satisfy that skin hunger with lots of cuddle time. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, it could also be, I think, who you choose as partners, what qualities you look for, because you
Mm.
deserve to be with someone who makes you feel good. You deserve to be with someone who makes you feel safe. You
Mhm.
deserve to be with someone who prioritizes your safety and your health and your pleasure. So, even being cognizant of who you choose as your sexual partners can be self-care because you're prioritizing the people and the behavior and the action that makes you feel good and makes you, live your healthiest life.
Right. So my last note about self-care before we close is just that my formula of steps to boundaries. First of all, everyone deserves boundaries, and the steps that I give to my clients about boundaries and how important they are. So the steps to having really good boundaries, there's a step zero, okay? Boundaries are essential to self-care, and these could be energy boundaries, time boundaries, right? Like interpersonal boundaries about how people treat you, or time boundaries about how much work you're doing, energy boundaries so people don't violate your energy. But step zero to having good boundaries is step zero is believing you're worthy of having them, right? And then step one is noticing discomfort, because you have to notice discomfort to notice where your violation of boundaries is. And step two is starting to communicate or advocate for your boundaries. And step three is just repeat, 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 repeat. So thank you all for joining us here today. Happy Women's Health Month. And I hope you have a great time continuing to build a life around proactive self-care.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Please stay in touch with us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, following us on social media, and absolutely please comment below and let us know if you have any suggestions for future topics. We would love to hear from you.